Chapter 2, Call of the Wild. The very first thing that entered Caroline Malloy's head when she heard about the Abaguchi was what a marvelous movie it would make. That would be the title, of course, just Abaguchi. While the credits were rolling across the screen, the camera would be scanning a typical small town neighborhood about dusk, zooming in on a young girl sitting on the steps of her house with a kitten in her lap, watching the sky grow dark, the fireflies come out, and the moon rise up in the sky. After a while, she would feel chilly, so she'd put down her kitten and go inside to get a sweater, and when she came back, the kitten would be gone. Worse yet, on the steps where the kitten had been, there would be, yes, a pool of blood and a little tuft of white fur along the kitten's collar, and the girl's eyes would open wider, and she would grab her throat and stifle a scream, and then in big letters filling the whole screen, Abaguchi, starring Caroline Lenore Malloy. Caroline, what the world? Asked her sister Eddie as the girls walked home from school, and it was only then that Caroline realized she was walking down the sidewalk, clutching her throat. Caroline's one ambition in life was to be an actress, and an actress, as everyone knows, always has an eye for a good role. How did I look just then? Caroline asked. Horrified? Frightened? Stunned? What? You look like you were about to throw up, said Beth. Caroline looked at her 10 and 11-year-old sisters. I was just thinking about what it would be like if I found a pool of blood and a little tuft of white fur where I'd left my kitten, if I had a kitten. Eddie gave her a peculiar look, lifted the baseball cap she wore all the time on her head, and put it on backwards. Sometimes I wonder about you, Caroline. I really do. But Beth was more sympathetic. Beth always had her nose stuck in a book, Zombies on the Loose or The Smell of Midnight or something. So she understood things like pools of blood and tufts of fur. What got you thinking about that? Beth asked. Wally Hatford asked me if I had any pets. He said if we did, we'd better not leave them outside after dark because the Abaguchi had been seen again. The what? Asked Eddie. Eddie's name was really Edith Ann, but she hated it and preferred Eddie. That's what he called it. He said nobody knows what kind of animal it is, so people around here call it the Abaguchi. It comes out after dusk, and several people have seen it. He said there had just been another sighting. Spooky, breathed Beth. But Eddie scoffed. That sounds exactly like something those Hatford goons would dream up. Caroline, can't you tell when somebody's pulling your leg? He said we could look it up in the old newspapers, that there had been stories written about it. Oh, said Eddie. At dinner that evening, Caroline was thinking some more about the movie she was creating in her mind. No one would want a real kitten to be snatched up by a creature and squeezed. Then she realized a little kitten didn't have to die at all and leave blood behind. All you needed was a close-up of a kitten sitting peacefully. She put a spoonful of strawberry jelly on her plate and stirred it around with a fork. Caroline, what on earth are you doing? Making blood for my death of a kitten scene. Your what? Her mother asked. So Caroline had to explain once again what Wally Hatford had told her. That sounds like absolute nonsense, Mother said. Well, I've heard the faculty mention it once or twice, Father said. He was coaching the college football team this year and wasn't quite sure whether he would stay on after a year was over or move the family back to Ohio. I've heard different players on the team joke about it now and then. Then that's the last time I'm going to go for firewood after dark, Mother said. It could be some bobcat or something, but from what the faculty members say, it's supposed to be bigger, probably like a Loch Ness monster. The more you talk about it, the bigger it gets, Father said. There was a PTA meeting the following night, and both Mr. and Mrs. Malloy got ready to go. Anything special you want us to ask your teacher? Mother asked. Could you ask when the next school play will be? Caroline begged. I'll just die if I have to wait until 5th grade to be in another play. Ask when I can try out for the softball team, Eddie said. They said March, but I see guys out there practicing all the time, and I want to be sure they don't hold tryouts without me. Ask why we can't have silent reading at our desk like we did back in Ohio. I could finish a book in 2 days if we could just had silent reading in school, Beth suggested. We'll ask, said Mother. And she and Father headed outside and down the bank toward the swinging bridge to walk the few blocks to Buckman Elementary. Eddie and Beth spread their homework out on the dining room table and began their assignments while Caroline stretched out on the sofa with her geography book and tried to memorize the capitals of the states west of the Mississippi. The fire in the fireplace snapped and popped occasionally, and now and then there would be a clunk As another log fell, smoking and sizzling, she recited under her breath, North Dakota Bismarck, South Dakota Pierre, Nebraska Lincoln, Kansas Topeka. Suddenly she put down her geography book and listened. There was a soft, distant sound of, well, she wasn't sure. A moan? Like something in pain, perhaps? She lifted her head from the cushion and looked at Beth and Eddie. Another moan, more like a howl this time. A moaning howl. A howling moan? Closer now? Was it anything they had ever heard before? She didn't think so. Beth and Eddie had heard it too. Caroline swung her legs over the side of the couch and sat up. They listened some more. Again the noise came, more like an animal, Caroline thought. But no animal she could name. It was growing louder all the time. All three girls ran to the dining room window overlooking the river, hands cupped. Ow! Ow! Eddie, what is that? I don't know. It's not far away, whatever it is. Should we call Mom and Dad at the school and ask them to come home? Or the police, maybe, said Beth. Ow! Yip, yip! Ow! There was a grunting, scrabbling sound like a creature. Are the windows locked? Asked Caroline. Never mind the windows. What about the doors? Beth, go check. You come with me, said Beth. Huddled together, the girls moved toward the front door. Ow! Wait a minute. Don't make a sound. Ow! Listen. Along about here there should be a whine. Caroline stared at Eddie. Ow! Yip! Ow! Yip! Yip! And then, just as Eddie said, a whine, Caroline's mouth dropped open. I know those sounds, Eddie said. That's a cassette tape of wolves in the wild. We had to listen to that in science class last year in Ohio. We had to listen to that so much I know it by heart. It's the Hatford boys. Them, said Caroline. Caroline didn't know whether she was more angry or excited. Every time the boys did something to them, it just gave the girls an excuse to do something worse. What are we going to do? Asked Beth. Leave the curtains open just like they are. You two run around inside and act scared, Eddie told them. I'm going to sneak out and catch them when they go back down the driveway.